What is the dumbest thing you got sent to the principal's office for as a kid? Tooth trouble. One time I lost a tooth during lunch, which wasn't unusual for a kid my age. I figured I'd take care of it myself, so I headed to the bathroom to clean up the blood and bits of food stuck to my gums. It seemed like a responsible thing to do. But when I returned to the lunchroom, my teacher immediately whisked me off to the principal's office. Apparently, I'd broken some unspoken rule about leaving the cafeteria without permission. The principal took one look at me, my face a mix of confusion and bloodstains, and instead of sending me to the nurse, he handed me a detention slip. I sat in the office for the rest of the day, wondering how losing a tooth could lead to detention. My parents were baffled when I explained what happened, and to this day, it remains one of the most absurd reasons I've ever been in trouble. The Great Choir Fiasco. In elementary school, I was a part of the choir. Not because I was good at singing, but because my parents thought it would build character. One day during practice, I hit an especially off-key note. It wasn't intentional, but my choir teacher must have thought I was trying to sabotage the whole performance. She glared at me and then, without a word, pointed to the door. Next thing I knew, I was sitting in the principal's office, accused of intentionally disrupting the choir. The worst part? I had to sing in front of the principal to prove that I wasn't faking my awful voice. After a painfully awkward audition, the principal sent me back to class with a sympathetic nod, confirming what I'd been trying to explain all along. I really am just a terrible singer. The announcement nightmare. When I was in the 4th grade, I somehow got roped into doing the morning announcements. I dreaded it. My voice would shake every time I had to say the pledge or announce the lunch menu. One day, I completely froze in the middle of announcing a fire drill. I just stood there, staring at the microphone, unable to remember what came next. The silence stretched on, and when I finally stammered out the last words, the entire office staff burst into laughter. I thought I'd gotten away with it, but nope, straight to the principal's office I went for disrupting the flow of the day. The principal wasn't angry, though. He told me that public speaking wasn't for everyone, and to my immense relief, they let me off the hook for the rest of the month. The suspended victim. Once in middle school, I got beat up by another kid. I didn't fight back. The principal had always told us that if we didn't engage, we wouldn't get in trouble. So I stood there and took it, thinking I was doing the right thing. But when I got sent to the office with a bloody nose, the principal handed me a suspension slip. "You were involved in a fight," he said, as if getting punched repeatedly without fighting back counted as involvement. I tried to explain that I hadn't even raised a hand, but he wasn't having it. That day, I learned an important lesson. Sometimes, just being there is enough to get you in trouble. Madagascar mix-up. In 9th grade, I got called to the principal's office because I was trading a DVD with a friend during lunch. We were exchanging copies of Madagascar and Ice Age, but the principal didn't believe us. He thought we were swapping something more illicit. He confiscated the DVD and popped it into his computer, ready to catch us red-handed. When the familiar sounds of Alex the Lion filled the room, the principal's face turned redder than a baboon's butt. He quickly apologized and called our parents to explain the misunderstanding. It was one of the more surreal experiences of my school life, but at least we got our DVDs back. The laxative prank. The time I almost became a legend. A friend and I decided it would be hilarious to add laxatives to the school's water cooler. We weren't exactly criminal masterminds, and it didn't take long for students to start lining up at the bathroom. Before I knew it, someone snitched, and I found myself in the principal's office, trying to explain that it was just a harmless prank. I was suspended for 10 days, which, in hindsight, was pretty lenient considering what could have happened. The principal told me I was lucky not to be expelled. I spent those 10 days thinking about my life choices, and how much trouble you can cause with a little laxative. The sweater knot incident. Middle school recess was supposed to be a time for fun, but somehow I found myself in the principal's office more often than not. One particular incident involved my friend's hoodie, which got tied up in such a way that it was practically a noose around his head. It wasn't intentional, but it sure looked like some kind of hazing. A couple of us were trying to untie it, but no one realized we could just pull the hoodie over his head to get it off. The teachers saw us huddled around him, assumed the worst, and marched us all to the office. The principal lectured us on bullying, and we each got a week's worth of lunch detention. It wasn't until much later that we realized how easily we could have avoided the whole mess. Pretzel profanity. One time in 3rd grade, my friend and I thought it would be hilarious to spell out a swear word using pretzels on the lunch table. We were giggling like maniacs, fully aware that we were breaking every elementary school rule about using bad words. Another kid at the table ratted us out, and before we knew it, we were sitting in the principal's office. He held up a picture of our pretzel art as evidence. We couldn't stop laughing, which probably didn't help our case. Our punishment? No recess for the rest of the week. We spent those 5 days regretting our decision, mostly because we missed out on playing tag. Twin trouble. Having an identical twin can lead to some pretty hilarious mix-ups, but it's not so funny when you get sent to the principal's office for something your twin did. One day, my brother got in trouble for talking back to a teacher. Somehow, the teacher confused me for him, and I ended up taking the heat. I tried to explain the mix-up, but the principal didn't believe me. It wasn't until the next day, when my brother came clean, that the principal apologized for the mix-up. By then, I'd already served detention, and all I got was a sheepish "sorry" from the principal. To this day, I still tease my twin about the time I took the fall for his smart mouth. Forbidden Yu-Gi-Oh cards. In middle school, I was obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh. My friends and I would trade cards during recess, which was totally innocent, right? Wrong. One day, the school decided that Yu-Gi-Oh was a gateway to gambling and banned the cards. I didn't get the memo and was caught mid-trade. The principal confiscated my deck, claiming that card games had no place in school. I argued that it wasn't gambling, but he was convinced that my Blue Eyes White Dragon was somehow corrupting the youth. I got a week of detention, and my cards were returned at the end of the year. It felt like a lifetime without my deck, but at least I wasn't expelled for corrupting my classmates. The rock throwing scandal. I was once sent to the principal's office because I got hit in the head with a rock during recess. Yup, I didn't throw it, I didn't start the fight, I just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But because I was involved in the incident, I got pulled into the office along with the kid who threw the rock. I remember sitting there, holding an ice pack to my head, while the principal lectured us both on the importance of safety during recess. I kept thinking, how did I end up here? It was one of those times when just being there was enough to get you into trouble. Fartgate. Believe it or not, I got sent to the principal's office for saying the word fart during science class. It wasn't even directed at anyone, it just slipped out while we were talking about gases. The teacher looked horrified, like I'd committed some kind of unforgivable sin. Before I knew it, I was sitting in the principal's office, trying to explain that it was just a word and not meant to disrupt the class. The principal didn't seem too concerned, but I still got a warning. I spent the rest of the day in disbelief, wondering how something as harmless as fart could land me in hot water. Hall pass hack. Back in high school, I discovered a little trick that felt like winning the lottery. The hall pass slips to go see the principal and the off-campus slips were the exact same color. For about 2 glorious months, I lived the dream. Every time I was called to the principal's office, I'd flash my pass to the school security and walk right past them, heading off campus to enjoy my freedom. No one questioned it. Unfortunately, the dream came to an abrupt end when the principal came looking for me in person. He realized I'd been skipping and I ruined it for everyone. But hey, for those 2 months, I felt invincible, almost arrested for a drawing. In freshman year, I was sitting at lunch, casually sketching a map inspired by my favorite TV show. One of the characters in the show was a cop, so naturally, I included a little doodle of a police officer. Apparently, someone saw my drawing, assumed I was plotting something sinister, and next thing I knew, I was in the principal's office with a security guard and an actual cop. They searched my backpack, questioned me about my intentions, and finally called my mom. She couldn't stop laughing when I told her the whole story, and once I explained the context to the principal, I was let off the hook. Turns out, some nosy classmates had reported me out of boredom. I'm still baffled that my drawing almost got me arrested. Cookie controversy. In 6th grade, our class was given a cookie as a special treat before recess. While most kids scarfed theirs down immediately, my friend and I decided to save ours for lunch. Apparently, that was a big no-no. When we came back from recess, the teacher and the rest of the class were outraged that we hadn't eaten our cookies. We refused to eat them on command, insisting that we wanted to wait until lunch. Off to the principal's office we went, accused of being difficult. To this day, I'm still amazed that saving a cookie could cause such a scandal. Milk trauma. In kindergarten, I was never a big eater, and milk was no exception. We were each given an 8-ounce carton with lunch, and the rule was that we had to shake it to prove it was empty before throwing it away. I hated the taste and never finished mine. One day, the teacher got fed up with me and decided to pour my milk into a glass to show me how little I was being asked to drink. I pointed out that it didn't matter if it was in a glass or a carton, it was still the same amount of milk. Off to the principal I went. Looking back, I realize I probably had some deep-rooted food issues, but getting sent to the office for not drinking milk? That's next level. Sock saga. Catholic school rules were no joke, and I learned that the hard way. One day, I showed up wearing the wrong socks, something as trivial as a different shade of white. Before I even had a chance to explain myself, I was whisked off to the principal's office. My punishment? Detention for breaking the dress code. In a school where even your socks had to be holy, I guess I should have expected it. Paperclip chaos. In elementary school, a weird trend started where kids would unbend paperclips, stick them in their mouths, and pretend they had retainers. It became a full-on epidemic. Kids were walking around with paperclips in their mouths, poking themselves, and bleeding everywhere. Somehow, this became my fault, even though I wasn't involved. I was just trying to get through the day with a sore mouth from my actual retainer, but apparently, I was the one who started the whole thing. Off to the principal's office I went, trying to explain that I had no part in it. But, as with most things in school, logic didn't matter. The Great Fart Incident. I've always been known for my impeccable timing when it comes to farts, but one time in elementary school, things went a little too far. I let one rip in class, and while everyone laughed, one kid actually threw up. I didn't think a fart could have that kind of effect, but apparently, it can. The teacher, horrified by the chaos, sent me straight to the principal's office. It's still one of the most ridiculous reasons I've ever been in trouble, but hey, at least I left an impression. Literally, suspended for being a lesbian. When I was 7, I got suspended for 3 days. Why? Because the math teacher found me and my best friend talking in the bathroom while she was in the stall with the door open. The teacher freaked out, dragged us to the principal, and accused us of inappropriate behavior. Neither of us had any idea what she was talking about. To make matters worse, the teacher assumed I was a lesbian. Again, I was 7, and that's why we were in trouble. My mom, who happened to be a lecturer on sex and psychology, absolutely tore the school apart. I was back the next day, but the memory of that absurd experience still sticks with me. The negative numbers debate. In 1st grade, I got into a heated argument with my teacher over negative numbers. We were doing an assignment where we had to arrange numbers to make equations, and my dad had already taught me how negative numbers worked. So, I used them in my answers. The teacher, however, insisted that negative numbers weren't allowed. I kept asking why, and when she couldn't explain, she accused me of cheating and sent me to the principal's office. Fortunately, the principal understood the concept of negative numbers and let me hang out in his office with a book for the rest of the assignment. The teacher later apologized, but that principal? He was the real MVP. The handcuff dilemma. One day, during recess, a classmate thought it would be hilarious to handcuff me. Unfortunately, the emergency release on the handcuffs failed, and we spent the entire break in the office trying to get them off. I wasn't even mad, just amused by the absurdity of the situation. The principal had to call in the janitor to help, and after what felt like an eternity, I was finally freed. It's one of those weird memories that's both frustrating and hilarious. Hamster freedom. In 3rd grade, I decided to liberate all the classroom pets during recess because I thought they looked stressed. The hamsters seemed like they needed a break from their tiny cages, and the fish deserved a swim in bigger waters, aka the sink. Naturally, this didn't go over well with the teachers. Chaos ensued as the students and staff scrambled to recapture the hamsters. I was sent to the principal's office, where I had to explain my act of animal kindness. Unfortunately, my defense didn't hold up, and I spent the rest of the day in detention, calling out a teacher's racism. In one of the most shocking moments of my school life, I called out my teacher for jokingly calling me the N-word. It wasn't just an off-the-cuff remark, it felt intentional, and I couldn't stay silent. I spoke up, expecting that someone in authority would back me up, but instead, I was the one sent to the principal's office. You'd think that calling out blatant racism would warrant support, but nope. The principal didn't even address the teacher's comment. I was written up for disrupting the class and left feeling both angry and disillusioned. That incident marked the beginning of my distrust toward those who were supposed to protect us. Bart Simpson, the ultimate rebel. I proudly wore my Bart Simpson shirt to school, the one with the slogan, "Underachiever," and proud of it. Little did I know that a simple shirt with a cartoon character would land me in hot water. The teacher saw it and immediately sent me to the principal's office for promoting poor behavior and a bad attitude. It's kind of hilarious looking back on it, because of all the things to get sent to the office for, wearing a Bart Simpson shirt seems pretty tame. But to the school, it was a sign of rebellion. I walked into the principal's office like a true underachiever, proud of my wardrobe choice. The giant straw incident. Study hall was always boring, so I decided to make things a little more interesting by constructing a giant straw out of 20 regular-sized straws. My goal? To knock my friend's papers off the table from a distance. It worked brilliantly, but before I knew it, the teacher caught wind of my antics and told me to head to the office. I refused, not because I was trying to defy authority, but because I thought it was such a silly thing to get in trouble for. The next thing I knew, the principal himself was escorting me out of study hall. Honestly, I felt more pride in my straw engineering skills than shame for being in trouble. The carpet fidget. In my high school's second period classroom, the carpet had seen better days. There were loose threads everywhere, and one day I sat next to a spot that looked like a ball of yarn. The teacher was off in her own world, so I started fidgeting with the fibers. I wasn't trying to pull the carpet apart, just keeping my hands busy. Suddenly, I heard the dreaded words, "Boy, come here." He accused me of pulling the carpet loose and sent me to the principal's office with a pink slip. I couldn't believe I was being punished for literally playing with a loose thread on the floor, playing on the wrong side of the playground. In elementary school, we had strict rules about where we could play during recess. One day, I wandered to the wrong side of the playground, not realizing there was an invisible boundary. A teacher caught me and sent me to the principal's office for breaking the playground rules. I remember sitting there, baffled that something as simple as running around could get me into trouble. Apparently, there were territories on the playground I wasn't allowed to explore. The wooden sandal scandal. I used to wear those wooden Dr. Scholl's sandals, super trendy back in the day. But I guess I broke some unwritten school fashion rule because I got sent to the office for wearing them without socks. It wasn't like I was breaking the dress code, but the teacher insisted that it was inappropriate for school. Who knew that the simple act of wearing sandals could lead to such a ridiculous confrontation with the principal? The bomb joke gone wrong. Back in high school, metal detectors were mandatory when entering the building. One morning, I passed through, and the detector beeped. My friend, in a totally sarcastic tone, said, "What do you have, a bomb?" I replied, "Yeah, right, I've got a bomb." The security guards didn't find the joke funny. I was immediately grabbed, pulled aside, and held for questioning the rest of the day. Despite it being an obvious joke, the administration considered it a serious threat. I came this close to being expelled for a sarcastic comment, wearing the wrong color. In a school where green was the dominant color, wearing red was apparently a crime. I showed up one day in a red sweater, not thinking anything of it. I wasn't trying to make a statement, I just liked the color red. But the school administration saw it differently. They told me that wearing red disrupted the uniformity and sent me to the principal's office. I still don't get how one color could cause so much chaos, but there I was, sitting in detention for my bold fashion choice, sneezing too much. One day, I had an uncontrollable sneezing fit during class. I couldn't stop, sneezing 20 times in a row. The teacher thought I was faking it to disrupt the lesson, even though I clearly wasn't. No matter how much I explained, she wasn't having it and sent me to the office for faking illness. The principal took one look at me, saw that I was genuinely sneezing, and let me go. I still laugh about it to this day. Getting in trouble for sneezing is next level absurd. Pencil terrorism. In 5th grade, I had a classmate who bullied me constantly. One day, he made fun of me for stuttering, and I snapped. I didn't say anything, but I waved my pencil at him as if to tell him to stop. Unfortunately, that gesture was seen by a teacher, and I was sent to the principal's office. They treated me like I was a dangerous kid, accusing me of creating a safety threat because of the pencil. I tried to explain that I wasn't going to hurt anyone, but it didn't matter. I was punished for simply defending myself. Questioning religion. Growing up in a Catholic elementary school, we had daily religion classes. One day, I started asking questions, serious questions, about the logic of what we were being taught. My teacher did not appreciate my curiosity and saw it as an act of defiance. Apparently, poking holes in an adult's belief system is frowned upon when you're 10. I was sent to the principal's office for disrespecting authority, when really, I just wanted to understand things better. It was one of those moments where I realized that not all questions are welcome, even in a classroom. Vase destruction. One day, my teacher sent me on a personal errand, asking me to carry a vase from her classroom to another. I was being careful, but as I was walking, the vase accidentally slipped from my hands and shattered. I immediately apologized, but my teacher wasn't having it. She accused me of being disrespectful and careless, sending me straight to the office. I didn't even mean to break it, but I guess that didn't matter. I ended up with a write-up for what was an honest mistake. The Enrique Iglesias misunderstanding. During history class, we were talking about famous people in the music industry, and I casually mentioned Enrique Iglesias. My teacher misheard me and thought I said the word gay. Before I could explain that I wasn't making any derogatory comments, I was sent to the principal's office for saying something inappropriate. The whole situation was a huge misunderstanding, but no one bothered to hear me out. All the teacher heard was gay and assumed the worst. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment and follow for more stories.